Bend the knee!
D.B. Weiss and David Benioff are the executive producers behind the HBO television show Game of Thrones, based on the George R. R. Martin series A Song of Ice and Fire. And while they have received criticism for the adaptation from novel to screen, I'd like to point out some of the reasons why they may actually be very good for this TV adaptation. This is the case for Dan and Dave. From the very beginning of the story, it seems that they have involved George R. R. Martin in a way that most writers don't actually get to have control over the screen adaptations of their work. If we look at writers such as Frank Miller, Alan Moore, and also Mark Millar, we see that there are many cases in which people have had their work adapted to either the small or the big screen and have had absolutely no creative input in how the final outcome of their product comes out. This has led some writers to either heavily criticize the work that has been presented on screen or to go out of their way to totally dismiss themselves and say that these derivative works are in no way representative or any of the ideas which they set down to paper. Frank Miller was the original writer of RoboCop 3, but since his script was so heavily edited and he was pretty much shut out of the process, he decided to go and make RoboCop 3 into a comic book adaptation rather than attach his name to the actual movie itself. Alan Moore, who has had 3 novels translated to the screen, has actually went out of his way to make sure that his name was removed from the credits, as he feels that attaching his name to these works would actually ruin his reputation. And while he has never publicly displayed any disdain for the adaptation, it is duly noted that the 2008 film Wanted is vastly different from the 2004 comic in which it was supposedly adapted. While D&D could have just gave George R. R. Martin a bunch of money and said, hey, we're gonna do whatever we feel like from the books and not give you any kind of input whatsoever, not only have they worked closely with George for a very long time, but George has actually written at least 1 episode per season for the first 4 seasons, until delays of the Winds of Winter forced him to discontinue directly working on the series. Given that George has yet to finish actually writing the novels, it seems highly unusual that he was actually allowed to be involved in this process. While some people can be stubborn to a fault about their vision, Dan and Dave have actually went out of their way to make sure that this show was quality from the beginning, and that is evident in their decision to reshoot the pilot. We may never get to see this original pilot, and had this pilot actually become a full-fledged TV show, it is possible that we may not have made it this far to actually see some of the amazing things that have happened on screen. With the size of the cast of Game of Thrones, you would imagine that there probably would be some bad actors on the show just by the law of averages. But surprisingly, they have done a great job with casting with many of the characters from the books, such as Sean Bean as Ned Stark, Peter Dinklage as Tyrion Lannister, Lena Headey as Cersei Lannister, Stephen Delane as Stannis Baratheon, Charles Dance as Tywin Lannister, and Emilia Clarke as Daenerys Targaryen. Even though they may be described differently in the books with some of their physical features, for the most part, you have to admit that these actors have done a great job in making you feel as though these are the characters from the actual books, despite what they might actually look like on screen. Say what you will about things that have been cut from the show, but we have gotten many big book moments, such as the execution of Ned Stark in Season 1, the birth of the dragons, the Battle of Blackwater, the Red Wedding, the Purple Wedding, Tyrion's trial, Oberyn versus the Mountain, Daznak's Pit, and the Battle at the Wall. among many others. They've also managed to keep in some Easter eggs from the book, such as the songs from the book, like The Bear and the Maiden Fair, and one of Patchface's songs, which is sung by Shireen at the end of an episode in Season 3. We got a reference to Tyrion losing his nose at the Battle of the Blackwater, as well as a mention of the duel that Peter Baelish fought with Brandon Stark for the hand of Catelyn Tully. Speaking of Peter Baelish, the show has done a great job of illustrating who the villains are and also giving them their own unique story arcs. From Joffrey to Walder Frey to Ramsay to Littlefinger to Tywin. We've seen many villains throughout the story, and none of them have come off as cookie cutter or two-dimensional at all. Game of Thrones is known for its rich set pieces and an overall look that rivals big-budget Hollywood movies. And part of that is the costuming. And while they may not be directly involved with designing the costumes, let's be honest here. If they had downvoted them having elaborate costumes, we could have gotten a much different show. Just think about examples of other medieval television that have happened over the years that haven't quite lived up to the standards set by Game of Thrones. While it is notable that we are missing the Braavosi language, it should be highly noted that we do have a fully realized Dothraki language as well as a semi-developed Valyrian language, and that helps to add to the richness of the world and also gives it a kind of depth that we don't get to see with many other fantasy epics or even other real-world epics that have been portrayed on TV. We've had a chance to have a deeper look at some characters who in the books did not have their own POVs, such as Robb Stark, Stannis Baratheon, the Tyrells, Varys, and Littlefinger. And while this could have fallen flat, this actually helps us to understand some of the character motivations a little bit better than we do in the books, and it helps to give you a little bit more sympathy for characters that you might otherwise not care about whatsoever if you weren't able to see their point of view. There have actually been a few times where Dan and Dave going off book has actually helped to make things better. For one, we got Littlefinger's classic "Chaos is a ladder" speech. We got a crucial interaction between Robert Baratheon and Cersei Lannister, detailing how their marriage was never ever going to be anything other than trouble, as well as a recounting from Jaime about why he killed the Mad King directly to Robert Baratheon, even though Robert didn't fully understand exactly what it was he was being told. We also got a little glimpse into why Viserys was such a dick with the respect monologue that he gave to Jorah Mormont as he attempted to take Dany's dragon eggs. Let us not forget a definitive answer as to what happened to Theon after the Battle of Winterfell and him being captured by Ramsay Bolton, and also the many White Walker scenes that we've gotten, including, most of all, Hardhome. And finally, we have the History and Lore series, which comes with each season of the DVDs, and these go to give you a lot of background that is sometimes touched on in the episodes, but not really fully explored as much. And this is how people who haven't read the books are able to get background on events such as the Dance of the Dragons, Aegon's Conquest, the War for the Dawn against the White Walkers, and other far-flung historical events. While I'm sure this will not erase any criticism that people have of Dan and Dave as far as their adaptation of the books to the show, hopefully this will provide a little bit of context as to why these two actually might have been pretty good as far as putting this whole thing together and making it the quality show that we have gotten for the past 6 seasons. You guys let me know what you think in the comments, and as always, rate, comment, subscribe, share, tell your friends to come back for more. This is Don Raven saying, Valar dohaeris.